What we have today is just a quick kind of crash course in some basic word problems. Now, little disclaimer here, no matter how many problems we do with these, there's always going to be a little bit of a difference or variance because every word problem is different. So there's no like one set way that we're going to be doing these. So you really have to be thinking about this and think about your approach and think about the strategy to solve these. So for example, the very first one, what you would be looking at is you are going to notice that this says that we are finding the product of three consecutive odd integers. Okay, so first off, if we're looking at three consecutive odd integers, what we'd be looking at is the first integer, we don't know. We don't know that. So that's going to be x. The second integer, because it's an odd number, and if you think about like the number 3, to get to the next odd number of 5, you would add 2. To get to the next one, you would add 2. So the second integer would be x plus 2. And then the third integer, we're going to add another 2. So that means that we're going to be adding 4 to the original amount. So that's how you would go ahead and list out those consecutive odd integers. Now notice it says the product of those. So meaning that we're going to be multiplying. So we have x and then x plus 2 and then x plus 4. The product of those things are going to be equal to 4,845. And so as you are looking at this, you are going to go ahead and graph these. Notice it does say using your graphing calculator. So what you would want to do is you would want to go ahead and use your calculator. I'm going to use Desmos here. Excuse me, I didn't bring it up early, so that's all right. Takes me 1 second. And so what we can do is, because we are going to get this this equation, we want to go ahead and get this set equal to 0. All right, so what I want to do is go ahead and subtract that from each side. We don't even have to worry about multiplying or FOILing or anything like that. We can if we want, but the problem with that is there's going to be an opportunity to make a silly mistake if you do that. So now we're going to go ahead and do our Desmos. So we've got x times x plus 2 times x plus 4, and then subtracted, and we're going to be subtracting that 4,845 number. So 4,845. Now, notice my graph is not on the screen, so you're going to have to change your window a little bit, or in my case, I'm just going to look over here, and we have an x-intercept of 15. And since we have an x-intercept of 15, that is going to be our x value in this equation. So we have x equals 15. And so then to figure out the actual integers, we have that is our x. That's what it's asking you to do. But to check it, we could do 15 times 17 times 19. And sure enough, we do get 4,845. Okay, so moving on to the second one. This one, you need a little bit of background. You'll need a formula that looks something like this. And so you may have seen this before in a previous class. So what we're looking at is 2 years ago, Carol's living expenses were $1,200 per month. This year, the same items cost her $1,400 per month. What was the annual inflation rate for the past 2 years? So we are looking at the rate. And so in this picture that you guys see here, in this formula, I is interest. And so if you think about interest, this is the same idea as rate. So we are going to be looking for your I. P is your principal amount. So we start with $1,200. So $1,200 is your P. 1 plus, and I don't know what the rate is. I'm just going to go ahead and let that be an X. The N represents the number of years. So if we look at our formula, N is going to be 2, because we're looking at 2 years. And that's going to be equal to our final amount, which is $1,400. So again, we're going to be using this formula. You're not going to be using that formula all the time. All right, but because we're dealing with money, because we're dealing with an inflation rate, that would be the formula that we're going to be using. So first step to solving this is to get the parenthesis part by itself. So what we would need to do is we would need to divide each side by 1,200. And when we divide each side by 1,200, this will simplify to be 7 over 6. So 1400 over 1,200 simplifies to be 7 over 6. And now to solve, I can go ahead and do the square root of each side, and this is going to give us an approximation. So we have 1 plus x is approximately 1.08. And so then when you subtract, you get an x value of approximately 0.08, which then will transfer to an 8% increase. Moving on to the next one. This one is one that you're going to be seeing definitely in some of the word problems that you're going to be practicing. So Julia left home and drove east at an average speed of 27.9 kilometers per hour. Maya left sometime later, driving in the opposite direction with an average speed of 62.2 kilometers per hour. After Julie had driven for 5 hours, they were 232.8 kilometers apart. How long did Maya drive? So here's the deal. You can do this two different ways. So one, if you are super visual, you're going to start with Julia driving or leaving home and driving east. So we have Julia going this way. Her rate is 27.9 kilometers per hour. So 27.9. Your other person, Maya or Mia, left driving in the opposite direction. So this is her, with an average speed of 62.2 kilometers per hour. Now, here's the key, that we have to remember that your distance is equal to rate times time. And so in our picture right now, all I've labeled is your rate. So after Julie had driven for 5 hours, so Julie had driven for 5, we are trying to figure out how far apart they are. We're given that much. They're 232.8 kilometers apart. How long did Maya drive? We don't know that. That's our variable. Okay, so if you think about like segment addition from geometry, we've got Maya traveling this distance, we've got Julie traveling this distance, so we would add those two together. So you get 62.2x plus 27.9 times 5 equals 232.8. And so when we go to solve this, we are going to go ahead and multiply that 27.9 and then times 5, which gets us 139.5. This we still have as 62.2x. So then when we subtract, which is our next step, we would get 62.2x equals 93.3. So then when we divide for our final answer, we get x equals 1.5 hours. Now, some of you may be less visual and may want to organize your information a little bit differently. So the other way that you can consider it is to do a chart. And so kind of have a rate times time equals distance chart. And I've got, I'm just going to do M and J. I know that Maya is going 62.2. I don't know her time, but I know her distance is 62.2x. Julia is 27.9 kilometers per hour for 5 hours. Multiply those together to get 139.5. But again, this is one distance, this is the other distance. So together, we're going to add those together is your 232.8, and then it's the same algebra to get to x. So it's just up to you on how you want to organize your information, whether you want to do it in a chart or do it more in like a picture format. The last one, if you've been in chemistry, you may have seen a question like this. But let me go ahead and again, I'm just going to draw a picture to help us. So we have 2 gallons of an alcohol solution was mixed with 8 gallons of pure water to make a 6% alcohol of solution. So what I've got is 2 different things being added together for a third solution. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to label down here that this is 2 gallons of X%. We don't know that amount. Okay, we know 8 gallons of pure water. So 8 gallons of pure water. And here's the thing, if it's pure water, it doesn't have any alcohol in it. So it's 0%. Now together, if we have 2 gallons of one thing and 8 gallons of another, we're going to have 8 gallons total. And it tells us in our information that the mixture needs to be 6%. Okay, so anytime you're dealing with an amount times a percent, you're multiplying those together. So for example, if it's 10 gallons of 6%, you're going to do 10 times 0.06 to figure out the amount of pure alcohol that's in it. Okay, this one, 8 gallons of 0%, so 8 times 0, that's just 0. And then 2 gallons of our X amount. So we're going to multiply those. And now, if you look here, we essentially have our equation that we're going to solve for. So 2x plus 0 equals 0.6. So what you see in that blue is the amount of pure alcohol, pure alcohol. So now we have 2x equals 0.6, and so our x is going to be 30% once you solve for that. Okay? So again, you're just kind of organizing your information as best as possible, setting up an equation from that information, and then solving. Guys, again, I will be honest, not every single type of question was covered here. So I'm going to put you guys in some partners or some groups, let you guys work together, hash things out. Obviously, if you have questions, ask, and I'll be happy to help. Thanks.